That's a clap sync. Welcome to Patreon. Thank you for joining us. There you go. We're ready to go. Who's ready? I'm ready.
So ready.
There's so much equipment. I think
Don't knock it over,
I
Sam.
know. There's so much stuff. They're like, that's recording.
Yeah.
You're good.
Yeah.
You're streaming. That's recording. There's assets. We got guests.
Can we
exciting.
all scoot to our right? Boom. There we go.
There you go.
And just don't lean like with your elbow right here.
You can't. I can't make any promises. I can't make any promises.
Oh, yeah,
I can't make any promises.
All right. Ready? We're going to do an intro. Just hop right into it. Ready?
Yeah.
Okay. 3, 2. Hello, and Mike. And we're off to the
brilliant.
races. That was
Wait, Patreon gets to watch this part, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's the
Okay,
bloopers.
good.
That's your $15 a month, kids. That's what you get. All right, here we go. Hello and welcome to Might Be Awesome. My name is Sam Basher.
My name is DJ Wooldridge.
And
I'm Trisha Hurd.
there you go. There's also, if we timed it just right, there's a little thing right there that looks like I'm cradling it that has her name in it. But hey, next time we'll figure it out.
We'll figure it out.
But
Thank you for having me on the show, boys.
Thanks for joining us.
Part of our show.
And this is exciting. This is the show where we break down the newest episodes of Game of Thrones. You're familiar with that show, HBO, Home Box Office Network. They make that show. And we're talking about Season 8, Episode 2, A Night of the Seven Kingdoms, which is awesome. We have a synopsis I pulled from IMDb that I didn't read beforehand, so here we go. Jaime is faced by his past mistakes, nice and vague. Tyrion's decisions are seen with doubt, nice and vague. The Battle of Winterfell is discussed tactically. Sansa and Daenerys discuss the future. The remaining Night's Watch are reunited. Oh yeah! Everyone prepares emotionally with thoughts of their fate, nice and vague. Cool. All right.
Yeah, so
well,
this is basically like a night before episode. Like, hey, we're all probably gonna die tomorrow, so let's chill out and shoot the breeze.
there you go.
Let's tie up all our loose ends.
There you go. Hey, we're the ship's setting sail in the morning. Boys, go have a night out. Go have a good time. And some people had a great time. Some people were crying, and I started feeling like I wanted to cry at home. So overall, Trisha, kicking it off with you, what'd you think overall with this episode compared to episode 1, and just overall thoughts?
I feel like I'm probably going to be in the minority by saying that I think I liked episode 1 better.
Agreed.
I know a lot of people I saw on Twitter were like, this was the best episode of TV ever made, last night's episode. And I didn't necessarily feel like that. And I think it's because one of the things that I love about Game of Thrones as a series and as a property is that things don't end up tied with a nice little bow and close the way that we want them to. So it felt a little unusual to me that that's how things went down. And it actually made me think that I was telling DJ before he started rolling, it made me think that they're just going to red wedding next episode and murder everyone, because there's no way that people can be this happy on Game of Thrones. That's not how this goes down. So yeah, it felt very off to me. But I did like a lot of the scenes. There were a lot of really beautiful moments. So it's not to say that I did not like this episode. There was something that felt a little bit off to me.
I was the opposite. I didn't think they were going to red wedding everybody, but I thought like this would be the perfect opportunity to deploy that fan theory that the White Walkers are just going to breeze right past Winterfell and not even worry about it and go straight to King's Landing. Because I was like, how great would it be if you had this whole episode like, oh, we're all going to die, and then they just look and the Night King's like waving to them on the dragon, like, peace out, everybody.
We don't need to get to you. Everything else is way more cool. It's way cooler down there.
Yeah, but I agree with you. I liked this episode a lot. I thought the first episode did a better job of like the breath before. This felt like, hey, that was, the calm before the storm. And now here's some more calm. And I think part of the reason I felt that way is it ends on like the same note that last episode ended, like somebody down in the crypt telling somebody Jon's true parentage. And it's like, I felt like this is like the 4th time we've done this. I feel like we could have streamlined this whole thing. But I also really liked some of the stuff. Every time we cut to the chamber fire, I got ready to be bored. I was like, oh, this is going to be boring. And then something would happen there I felt would really engaging. Yeah.
Yeah, overall, I really enjoyed this episode. I will be the opposite side of the fence on this one. I actually really enjoyed it more than the first episode, but I can say that it was basically the same thing. It was just like lived, just drawn out a little bit more. Tormund, how'd you get here so quick? By the way, this is spoiler filled. Tormund, how'd you get here so quick? Horses. Yeah. Pretty sure they got a dragon, but we'll go ahead and just ignore that for a second. That's fine.
I got Giant's milk right here. That's all I need.
That was so weird.
We'll
get to that.
We'll get to that.
Was bizarre.
I will say this is the most joke-filled episode of Game of Thrones. I mean, there have been funny moments in other episodes, but this felt like the most like, we got a joke. We have only like a couple more hours to fit this in. Let's try it. And it's Tormund's whole thing with the milk. I was like, All right, we'll move on past this. I do
Yeah.
enjoy how people are reacting to him overall. I liked seeing everyone's moments. Arya and Gendry's a big moment that we'll get to later. Overall, I enjoyed what it meant and how everything played out for each of the characters. I thought it was done very respectfully and whatever. We'll get into it because I know we got some thoughts. And I'm excited to get into that. Also, I'm gonna call it the chamber fire.
Yeah.
There you go. The campfire scene. Overall, I really enjoyed it. I'm glad Podrick got to show up. Brienne had some of the best moments of this entire show period in this
Some
episode.
of her best character arc moments. Yeah.
And Jamie, I just like seeing Jamie here. Man, he's so sad. His depression moved up into his hair. It's just like it's all right there, right in front.
When they do the flashback to season 1, you're like, oh man, he looks so different then.
He genuinely looks younger. Like, I don't know how that happened. You like really age. Winter will really. What is
really
that?
wear you
Seasonal
down.
depression disorder.
Yeah.
Season affective disorder. That's what that is. Oof. I'm sorry, gang.
Something I really liked about this episode, as we go to like break it down, is that we cut right to Jamie showed up at the end of last episode. This is something I like about these later seasons of Game of Thrones. We cut to the chase. First scene, Jamie's on trial. We're not gonna like hem and haw about it. It's like,
Right.
nope, he's there. We're dealing with it. We had 2 whole seasons of spinning our wheels. We're getting stuff done now. So
I loved how they started that trial too.
Yeah.
Like I was expecting the Starks to be like, Jamie,
Yeah.
you're going down, and it starts with Daenerys being like, you killed my dad, and I was like, oh yeah, that happened too.
Yeah, I forgot.
Oh.
I genuinely forget a lot of the connections these characters have to each other until they're all now
Yeah.
in Winterfell.
Yeah. And I definitely forgot that, like, oh yeah, Kingslayer, that's his name. Who is the king? Oh, it's her dad. Oof. Ooh. Oopsie. Forgot about that. That was cool that they opened with that. I like Sansa's point of view, but I also like that Jamie didn't back down. He definitely felt bad about Bran, though.
Yeah.
But also, that I will get to their conversation later at the Godwood tree. Did I say that correctly?
Yeah.
Yeah, I am a fan of this show. I know, but I like that he stood his ground. He was like, I did what I needed to do for my family, and also I feel like everyone on that panel would have done similar things overall.
Yeah.
Remember, Danny, when you barbecued all of Sam's family for kind of no reason? But hey, whatever. That's my opinion on that. And I genuinely appreciated everyone's points of view, and Brienne had just a MVP moment there and later on in the
When she
episode.
stood up for Jamie.
Yeah.
Oh,
that
he
was great.
straight up owes his life to her. For
Yeah.
that moment.
100%. Yeah. And I also liked Bran's reasoning of going on to their conversation. He's like, well, if I told everybody what you did, you're not going to be helpful if you're dead. Bran's super pragmatic at this point.
Yeah.
Not a lot of emotion going on.
But you know what? Now I feel like is when Bran's like weird emotionless persona is totally paying off.
Yeah.
Like now I'm interested every time he says something, where before I was like, what?
Yeah.
Every time. Now I'm like, ooh, tell me more.
And
Yeah.
like Tyrion had that moment where he's like, tell me more, and then we cut, and then now it's a different campfire scene or
So
whatever.
did he fill Tyrion in on everything so that in case Bran goes, then Tyrion's memory lives on?
I think.
Oh.
I think since we're talking about spoilers, I definitely think Bran's going to eat it next episode. But we're gonna talk about who we think is going to die on our Patreon
when
episode.
we get there.
Yeah.
There's a lot of speculation there.
But I do think that we're setting up Tyrion to kind of have, because he made some snafus in last season, and then actually all the snafus were last season, but they're
And
coming home to
before.
roost.
And before,
Yeah, and
too.
before,
Yeah.
but like his being the hand of Daenerys has been relatively rocky. Maybe
Yeah.
a little too clever for his own good is the way they're trying to frame it. And I think his conversation with Bran, I feel like he's gonna pull out a big hero moment, like, "Hey, my brain does work, boom," and partially either save the day or save a group of people or be
Mayhaps the group of people in the crypts that he's with.
yeah. Well, crypt conversation. We're gonna have some
We're gonna have
conversation
some
about
hard
them
crypt
crypts.
conversation.
Oh,
Yeah.
for sure. No, and I did like Bran. Just as like good little nod to season 1. I like that he said the things you do for love. I like that little like
That
thing in there
zinger, which no one else would know that because Bran hasn't told anybody that it was Jamie, and that's what he said.
I feel like Jamie might not even remember. He's like, oh, that's a good line. Oh,
Oh,
later.
wait,
He's like,
oh, wait,
oh,
oh,
I said
wait,
that. Oh my
yeah.
God, I said that when I kicked
Yeah.
that kid out of the window.
That was a brilliant
Also,
zinger.
you can see it was nice having the ketchup before because you can see the budget next to each other. Where you're like, oh, you made it work. You made it
Yeah.
work fine, but you're like, you can kind of see it. You see the
Always-
edges of the budget
I
there.
think we've talked about it when we've done this show before. I always wonder what the show would have looked like had it not been the biggest show in the world. Like,
We
especially when you get the
differed.
later seasons. Could you imagine later seasons with season 1's budget?
Oh yeah, real sad CGI.
A lot less dragons. Lot
Yeah,
less
for
dragons.
sure.
Definitely no elephants. We'd never get those big goddamn elephants.
Maybe that's why the direwolves were essentially written out of the television show, because they are a big deal in the early seasons, and maybe they just didn't have budgets.
Yeah,
they
they
were like,
went-
you know what, let's just downplay
Yeah.
it.
Ghost was in the episode. He was
he
in the
showed up on
background
a wall.
corner of
For like
one
a
of the
hot
scenes.
second.
Yeah,
Yeah.
he's chewing on a toy or something.
Yeah.
Yeah, he
But
was
they
having
definitely
fun.
do not hold the position of importance that they do in the books,
Yeah.
in the series.
Yeah.
Yeah,
For sure.
But I did like mentioning earlier. I did enjoy Jamie talking with Bran or speaking with him, and I like his whole point is like, you are a good fighter, so it'd be stupid to kill you.
But then Bran, and good Bran moment. Thank you, Bran, for being a weirdo. When he's like, "How do you know there's going to be an afterwards?" And I was like, "Does Bran not know there's an afterwards? What does that mean? Does he know there's not an
Yeah,
afterwards?"
because we don't know that he sees the future, right? We know he sees everything that we've now determined that Bran is basically the living history of Westeros.
Interesting.
Yeah, and that is why the Night King is interested in him. Because
Gobble
and
him
now
up.
last week you mentioned
Right.
that what's the Night King's motivation? It sounds like he just wants to remake the whole world. Which, you know, if you got betrayed and turned into an endless ice monster, I might be a little pissy too.
Also,
Well,
your
and-
priorities just kind of get shrunk down. Just
Yeah.
like,
Maybe-
one thing.
Maybe not even remake, but I believe how Bran says it is he wants to erase Westeros.
Yeah, he wants to erase what,
and erase
what has
all
been.
of the memory that goes
Yeah.
with it. And he is the memory.
He's
which,
like, what if we just clean slate this whole bad boy, huh?
yeah, and then he says that, you know, he knows where I am because of the mark that's on me. So for anyone who's all Bran is the Night King, I feel like that little section between them was the showrunners being like, Bran's not the Night King. Moving on.
Yeah, but they are connected.
They are, yeah. I forgot that was. I didn't know that was left there. I thought
Yeah.
that was like, it's like a burn. It's like a sunburn that you lost. It's like, no. The Night King's gonna find you. I thought it'd be cool if he ended up in the tower. I think I talked about that last week. But the Godwood, whatever. That's fine.
Yeah, especially since the Godwood's been that werewood tree's been so prominently featured in the new opening credits, which by the way was cool seeing the battlements pop up around Winterfell.
Those are cool.
The
And,
opening credits are so good.
Yeah.
and they did mention, speaking of the battlements, you see a lot of dragon glass, and people are aware that Valerian Steel does something. So it's
Finally.
cool that people are sharing all the information. So anyone who's
Gots
got
to.
that, let's get an inventory and make sure we know where that is.
Yeah.
Good to go.
I feel like these first two episodes were all about sharing information. The first episode was about sharing the information the audience already knows with all of the characters, and the second episode was about sharing new information now the characters are coming back together.
Yeah, it definitely feels like it's all setting up for next week. Like, hey, here is the basic layout of Winterfell. Here's how the battlements work. Here's where everybody is. Here's because the show's actually done a pretty good job with that, with their big battles of doing a good job of making sure you know basically where everything's located,
Yeah.
and where everything is, so you can keep track of everything that's happening.
Yeah, it's important. Like whenever you play Clue, you got to know what items and characters are in your deck and who's going to be in the other decks. It's big Clue fan over
Yeah.
here, big fan. But speaking of that, there's no connection. I wanted to mention, I did want to give a shout out to Theon because usually I want him to crawl back into a hole and disappear forever. But I actually thought his scenes in this episode were they caught me off guard.
Yeah.
Also, I'm like, oh yeah, Sansa, they know each other. Yeah,
Yeah.
they had a very
He saved Sansa from Ramsay.
They
Yeah,
did.
and they're
He
the
did
only
have a
two-
hero moment.
They're the only two characters that know how bad that is, how bad the Ramsay
Yeah.
situation is. I was a little taken aback with how emotional she got, because even though he saved her, I never got the impression they were that close.
Yeah, I guess maybe I think it's more what Sam said. I think that they're that close because it's like we went through the most horrific
Yeah.
of horrors together.
Yeah.
And that's what they share. And I saw people tweeting online like, "Oh, are they going to be a thing?" No, don't ship them. That's not what this is about.
Also, Theon, if he died, I'd feel like, oh, thank God. Like not because I dislike him, but like you've been through so much.
He's been
Yeah.
through so
I like
much.
I do the idea of you living happily is nice, but maybe that might not be possible for you. You guys can think about that in the comments down below, what have you. But Sansa did give him eyes when they're having soup out in the snow there for a
But
second.
not sexy eyes.
But like
eyes
maybe
like human
eyes.
connection, and we're going through this. Now we're going into another horrible.
Like, how are you alive right now?
Yeah.
How are you alive right now for sure?
Speaking of Sansa, by the way, I got to throw out her garment, her like leather armor number.
Super cool.
It's badass as hell. It's so cool.
Both her and Daenerys in that scene where they talk to each other, wardrobe on point.
Yeah, there's a whole legion of people making armor for the soldiers, but then there's at least one person for each of them that's just like, make this dope, crazy stuff for us to wear. But anyway, speaking of Dany, Dany's credit, tries to go give her an olive branch, and it mostly goes okay.
At first, you're like, okay, they're figuring it out. They're figuring it out. But also, Sansa sticks to her guns. She's like, no, I don't know. I don't think Danny. I don't think you're getting this.
Yeah.
The North is ours, and that's we want to be our own independent thing outside of everything you're doing. You can go ahead, take. We don't even know what's on the other side of the planet. Go take that. Like, just leave the North to us. Also, it's mainly gonna be zombies now. You don't want that. Yuck. Leave us alone. Get out of here.
I like that interpretation of Sansa.
There you go. That's how they do it.
But yeah, it was all like, let's get together and bond over our love of Jon. But then hard no from Sansa. But I get it. She doesn't trust Daenerys yet. She has no reason to trust Daenerys yet. Of course she trusted Cersei. And look where that got her.
Yeah.
She trusted Littlefinger. Look where that got her. She has learned to not trust people.
Yeah, and I also liked it too because I thought the scene was a little too the rectification felt a little too easy. So I'm glad that Sansa stuck to her guns and was like,
I kind of interpreted Dany's point of view a little bit of maybe being ramifications of telling Sam what happened, and she's like, okay, maybe I'll just chill just like 5 notches down and just go try to talk to her. And it's like, well, that blew up in your face, and rightfully so.
I feel like Dany's in that position. Have you ever been where like, okay, I'm going to be the bigger person, and then you get the slightest bit of pushback, and you're like, never mind. Never mind. This is a bad plan.
I agree.
I want what I want, dang it.
That's exactly what that was. Yeah.
But hey, Sansa's been through it. She knows what she's talking about. I do trust her, and if anyone's going to be the leader of the North, go ahead and give it to her.
Yeah, 100%.
Sign, seal, deliver for sure. But yeah, we also start getting into like the preparations for the battle, and we mentioned that before with Bran talking about being marked. And also, I like Sam's. He had a lot of exposition in that scene of being like, "You're the memory, and memory's the memory, and history's memory." And you're like, okay, like you're getting a little, you're losing me a little bit, but I do like the idea, the way you're interpreting what the Three-Eyed Raven is and what that means to you and why we need to, that's our MacGuffin that we need to protect during this big battle.
But
I
also
enjoyed
think
that.
thematically, I think it's a little on the nose, but I think thematically what they're going for is kind of a thesis statement, it feels like, for the show, because all these people in this room have been through a lot.
Yeah.
And so it's the idea of like those memories, those experiences, that history is what makes us us. And we shouldn't forget those. So all the bad things that have happened have led us here, where we need to be. And again, he basically literally says that as opposed to like whatever. So it's a little on the nose, but I like that idea because it is a big part of what these characters have been through is a big part of the show. And I feel like the show has been about like, listen, our heroes will get their victories, but they're going to have to earn them. But they're going to have to earn them way more than pretty much any other fictional setting in history. They're going to have to earn it.
Yeah, nothing is simple.
Yeah.
Justice does not always win because this is a storybook. That's
Yeah,
what Game of
exactly.
Thrones does well.
Yeah.
Yeah, I felt like I actually was not like get through this exposition. I was like, oh my gosh, this is the key to the whole series. Bran, keep talking. And I feel like they did go for the most simplistic answer of what it could be.
Yeah.
That he has marked him similar to like a vampire bite. They
Yeah.
are aware of each
there you
other. But that he's the memory, and the Night King wants to destroy everything, and in order to really destroy it, one must destroy the memory of the world prior.
Yeah.
So that's what we've got out of that. But do you guys feel like that changes any of your predictions for the future, knowing that that's now the Night King's motivation, at least according to Bran?
I think my prediction just changed of how Bran's gonna die. It's like, because he's like, I don't want to go where it's secure. I want to go out into the big forest where you could bring a dragon by really quick, burn it, and then we'd be good. Like, walk away from it. I don't know if the Godwood tree burns, but like, if a dragon just kept hammering home at it, I feel like eventually something's gonna catch. So.
Yeah.
I that's all where I'm at. Bran becomes more understandable at that point. It's still magic, and it's also like they do explain it, but you're still like, okay.
Well, he's the giver of Westeros. If
Yeah.
anybody ever
There you go,
read The
yeah.
Giver, that's
we
what
all
he
had
is.
to. It was a sign. It was a signed reading.
Yeah, he's the giver of Westeros.
Spark notes over here.
But I think we would probably all agree the centerpiece of the episode, like the big meat and potatoes of the episode, is at the chamber fire, which opens with a rather awkward joke with Tormund, who likes his giant's milk.
So I interpreted that whole story, followed by random chugging from Drinking Horn, as just him trying to impress Brienne.
Yeah.
Like, he was like,
yeah.
what can I do to impress this woman? I've got it. And you're
I
like,
suck out the
odd
giant.
choice. But okay,
The
sir.
best line of the show, period, is when he turns around to the camera. He's like, "Is the giant woman here?" And it's like he's like the eager kid at Christmas. He's like, gotta get down there. He's gotta get to the presents. I love that. Was such a good joke. And then they kept it going with the suckling at the giant's breast, and I was like, let's see what Jamie's talking about. Where's his mind
Tormund
at?
or Jamie? Tormund or Jamie?
For Brienne?
Yeah.
Brienne.
She likes Jamie, but
She
I don't
does
want
like
her to
Jamie.
get with anybody.
Same. Brienne for Brienne. For maybe Podrick. There
Hey,
you go.
she-
Maybe Podrick.
Get
Hey,
with Pod.
But-
Pod's great. He can sing.
But he
Can sing.
can't.
He's got some
sing.
pipes.
Yeah, he got them pipes.
Oh, and he can sing Jenny of Oldstones, which is a big deal. I don't know if anybody caught that.
Yeah, go dive into that a little bit. I watched the little like breakdown stuff after. I live
Okay.
for that stuff. It bums me out. Sometimes HBO doesn't have those for their episodes,
Yeah.
and it bums me out. And they mentioned that it was from the book.
Yes, so Jenny of Oldstones is a song from the third book, I believe, and
Yeah.
it's a song that Arya encounters when she's with the Brotherhood Without Banners.
Yeah.
And the song lyrics in the book are pretty enigmatic,
Yeah.
but for the credits for afterwards, they had Florence and the Machine do their own version of it.
Really?
Yeah, if you watch the credits instead of fast forwarding through them, and they expand the lyrics there. They go
Don't
on.
judge me for fast
I-
forward through the
I-
credits.
I
all right?
got-
Don't
I
judge
know,
me
we
for
all
that.
want to get to the next time on
Barry
Game of
comes on
Thrones. I get
after.
it, I get it. It's very exciting. But they expand the credits, and what the story, from what I could gather, what it's kind of telling in that song is a story about a Targaryen who falls in love with a woman of no noble background,
Yeah.
and essentially gives up his kingdom to be with this woman, and they have a child, and it's tied into the Lord of Lights prophecy of the prince who will be promised. So people are saying, like, is that a prophecy talking about R plus L equals J and Jon's parentage? Basically, when you decode it, it kind of comes down to, based on the line of the Mad King, from the line of the Mad King will come the prince who was promised. So that could either be Daenerys or Jon.
Yes.
But that's what everyone's like,
Or
what
their
are they
baby.
telling us with the placement of that song? I will tell you, I right away recognized the first line as a song that was from the books, but I was not able to put it together until later.
Very
I was
cool.
just blown away with Podrick's pipes. Like that actor, they're great.
He's
I love it
great.
when you do stuff like that where they find out like, oh, he's got a voice. Yeah, he's definitely gonna sing a song in this episode.
He
Yeah.
knows how to play lace. He can now use a
Maybe
sword. He's
he
got good
sang to
hair.
them.
He can sing.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe he said,
Maybe
"Oh,
he sang to them.
Could you, if we watch that scene, it'd be so sweet. I might cry." He was like, "Oh no, he's great. Like we didn't have sex or anything. It was just he just sang to us, and it was so beautiful. We cried and then we took a nap. That's my favorite activity on
But I
Saturday
think
night.
as great as that was, I think as we kind of like close our thoughts on the episode, we have to talk about the title of the episode, Night of the Seven Kingdoms. Jamie knights Brienne, and probably one of the just purest, genuinely nicest moments the show has ever given us.
Yeah.
It was so sweet.
And she smiles.
And
the best-
it's
the
a
brightest smile
perfect
in the
delivery.
world.
It's perfect because it's like she's not gonna cry. Like
Yeah.
we're not gonna see that. It's fine if she
There
did.
were a little bit of happy tears.
There were, but no, that's what I mean. Is like
Yeah.
it just got to that point where it allowed her to be as emotive as maybe we've seen her. We've seen her be passionate.
Yeah.
But besides that, it's been like anger, like fury, and then
Right.
like honesty. Like
Yeah.
that's about it. And like she was genuinely happy, like for just a second.
Yeah.
And that means she has to die in the next
Yeah.
episode.
Oh,
she
yeah,
has
she's
to
so
die.
done.
Sir
Moving
Brienne
forward.
Tarth.
By the way,
Brienne of Tarth.
the other one that's like classic action movie, like somebody like, hey, you want to go get I got to go home to my wife and kid. It definitely means that person's going to die. Everything with Grey Worm and Missandei for the past 2 seasons has been like, Grey Worm's going to eat it.
Everyone is gonna eat it.
Yeah.
Arya and Gendry, we have to talk about that, even though
Oh.
that was the most awkward thing to watch ever, because Arya is everyone's little sister and nobody wants to see that.
For the Google searches, if you guys are popping over here for SEO, the actress is 22, and then someone said the character's 18. That doesn't mean we don't feel weird about it
Yeah,
still.
I get that she's an adult now, and they're showing us that, and like she and Gendry in the show have been building up to something.
Yeah.
I get it.
Yeah.
It was awkward.
And people have been
Yeah.
shipping them forever.
Yeah,
Not to my
since-
knowledge until last night when I
DJ,
was like,
you've been
like
shipping
Googling.
them.
I thought they said when they were developing a rapport as kids, it's like I could see them as adults ending up together. It feels a little bit different now because Arya definitely is not gonna like rule a keep or something. She's gonna be wandering the world and all that stuff. But like I saw that and it was like I'm cool with them getting together. I personally would have cut that scene like, hey, you want to do it? And maybe when the clothes start coming off, we cut to another
Yeah.
scene. It went a little bit longer than I needed.
Everyone I was watching it with was like, oh, no, please don't see Arya naked. Please don't see Arya naked. Please. And nothing against Maisie Williams. She's beautiful.
Yeah.
It's just we have grown up with that character, and it's weird.
I don't disagree that it's weird. I thought just overall the way that consent was exchanged between the two of them and the way that it built up slowly and slowly, and that they got Gendry to like, how many people have you been with? And I like that they were at a point where they can be so honest with each other. It was genuinely sweet. And I will say I did feel uncomfortable because it does feel like it's like, oh, in my head, I don't know. It feels like a family member. It's so weird. But like overall, like I'm glad that she could have that moment and he could have that moment. And wow, she did not. Either she's like dead inside at the end, or she was super disappointed. and I'm like, whoa, like in her eyes, it's just like either you're thinking about battle or super didn't go well, which. Hey, that happens. Another lesson from old Game of Thrones. Yeah. But overall, and we also shout out to the Hound and Eye Patch guy for meeting for 1 second. There you go. They were there for a second.
Arya's like, I'm not gonna hang out with you guys. Like, you guys are bummers. I'm out of here.
Yeah, she went through knives in the basement, which was it's pretty cool. But any critiques of the episode overall? Because you both really enjoyed episode 1. Did it just kind of feel like we were like biding time at this point, or were there any problems that you had in the episode?
No, I felt like everything was kind of tied up too neatly, making me feel like, when we have people tied up neatly and happy, it makes you feel like, cool, they're dying next episode. Yeah. And I feel like we kind of had that with everybody, which could mean that everybody gonna die, or it could, to me, feel like the show taking a very serious tonal departure from what the series has been up until now. And I think that's what stood out as bizarre for me. But I do think there were a lot of great character moments, and it certainly got me hyped for the next episode.
I'm excited to talk about specific possible deaths on our Patreon. I'm not going to dive into that. I'm going to wait for that. But I do think the show is in a different stage where we have been through all the hard stuff. And while I think the next couple episodes specifically are going to cast a heavy toll, I do think the show itself is going to end more optimistically than a lot of people expect. Because I think George R. R. Martin's always said bittersweet. You know what I mean? And I think the sweet is like, hey, these two people that are left turned out okay, but like everybody else kind of. We'll see. We'll talk about it specifically. But I did like this episode a lot, and I'm very excited for next week.
Without spoiling another property, I have feelings that this would end a lot like Why the Last Man Ends. So if you've ever read that, you know that book ends on a very weird note that I really appreciate, but it doesn't make you feel good. So I very much enjoyed it as well. I do get the criticisms of like Danny and John doing the same reveal in the same spot over and over again. Like it happens so many times.
Handle it great.
We don't know how that conversation ends. To be fair, they cut it and then are only like, "Hey, how did that end up?" Is the next time on Game of Thrones where they don't seem to hate each other. No. So that's all we've really been given.
And we know Danny loves John. She said that many times. So and I don't know. We'll have to deal with those problems in a little bit.
We'll see how that goes. Also, before we wrap this up, I do also want to say there was a lot of foreshadowing to "You'll be safe in the crypts," which means everybody in the crypts are gonna die. Can the White Walkers raise the dead? I don't know. We're going to have to theorize that in the next Patreon.
Yeah, let's talk about that on Patreon. I'm excited to talk about my crypt theories because there was a fan theory that I was like, I don't believe it. And now it's like, maybe.
But out of 10, really quick rating, what would you give this one? Out of 10 horns of giant's milk, what would you give it?
I'm going to give it 7 horns of giant's milk out of 10.
There you go.
I'm going to give it 8 horns of giant's milk.
I'll give it 8.5. Now, I'm the favorite in the comments down below if you did like it. But also, really quick, here's a clip from our Patreon Q&A session. Check it out. Never do that. Yeah, over on Patreon, if you click the link up here, nailed it, perfect. You can actually watch our Q&A session. We have Pamela Horton on. We're going to be doing an interview with her, seeing her thoughts on it. It's going to be a blast. And also, you can join us on Discord over at patreon.com/onlystupidanswers. Make sure you like, comment down below, subscribe, and also follow Trisha everywhere that matters.
That's so nice. You can do that at that GRL Trish on pretty much everywhere except for Twitch and YouTube, which is Trisha Hirschberger.
Nice. Where you
at? DJ Talks Trash.
At Sam Basher, and might be social everywhere, Twitter, Instagram. That's what everywhere means. Also, go to onlystupidanswers.com for our podcast. And gang, later this week, you're getting an Avengers Endgame review, so don't miss that. Make sure you subscribe, hit that bell notification to stay up to date. And until next time, stay frosty. I need a thing. I need a sign-off thing.
Stay frosty, stay dead. Yeah, that's what Sam just told you.
Stay frosty, my dudes. Cool. And just Patreon people, if you watch the live stream later, we're going to cut to black. We'll be right back with the Q&A.
Yay, Pam's in.
Yeah. Yes, please.
Hello.
Hey.
Cool. That's now you can see us. We're back. Don't
Yep.
worry. We
Let's
didn't
get
go
one.
anywhere. It's not scary.
One more of these. There you go.
There you go.
Yeah.
All right. Hello, all. Welcome to the Patreon portion of our Game of Thrones review show. My name is Sam.
I'm DJ.
This is Trisha Hirschberger. Thank you for joining us. And we have a very special guest today, Miss Pamela Horton.
Yay!
Welcome, Pam.
For people in the audience who are unfamiliar with you, what are some of the stuff that you've done around the internet?
I like my claim to fame is that I'm also known on the internet as Bayonetta. I'm trying real hard for Nintendo to pick me up for Bayonetta 3, so get that trending on
Dude,
the internet.
your Bayonetta cosplay is on point.
Yeah, well, I mean, because it was Nintendo official. Like, they paid $25,000 to have that costume built. And that is 50 pounds of real human
Yeah,
hair.
I was gonna say you did real hair.
That's real human hair.
Nobody that high
hits.
There's
Yeah.
a lot of levels there. There's a lot of levels there.
Go look it up.
Wait,
It's
wait,
amazing.
25 pounds of hair that you put on your head?
50, no. So with Bayonetta, as you know, Umber witches, like, they use hair to do their spells.
Of course.
So her outfit is supposed to be made of hair, but the only part that they could actually make out of hair is the part that drapes off of her. So it's all real human hair.
It's crazy
Like,
cool
black
looking.
human hair hanging down, and you would be like, "Oh, hair's so light," but people with thick hair are like, "Oh no, hair's thick and heavy."
Yeah.
So it was probably the most strenuous but gratifying photo shoot I've ever done.
So I just learned that they make clothes out of hair.
Yeah.
I didn't know that
Well,
part.
anyone else you see cosplay Bayonetta, 99.99999% of time does not use actual hair
Because it's super expensive.
Well, it's super expensive, and also how do the physics of that work? Like, there's a lot of questions
Yeah,
there.
yeah.
So when you see it done with actual hair, it's very cool.
Yeah.
Wow.
It's very cool.
Yeah,
Well,
yeah.
hot damn, that's really cool. That's
Today I learned.
Yeah.
Nintendo, get me an official Waluigi costume. I said that wrong, and I just had to run with it.
Waluigi.
Just Waluigi.
Are you
Wow.
trying Waluigi?
Yeah.
Oh.
I thought
I think it was
Wario
Wario
first.
and Waluigi had a baby. It became
Waluigi.
Swarluigi.
I was
No, that's
thinking
their
that-
ship name.
Yeah.
Okay, got it.
There it is.
Yeah, they're like weird cousins, but hey, we're talking Game of Thrones, so that's
Yeah,
okay.
Weird Cousins.
Perfect.
Man.
That's next week's episode. Weird Cousins.
Weird Cousins, episode 803. But yes, really quick, up top, we're talking about Night of the Seven Kingdoms.
Yes.
Got that right.
Yeah,
I
A
didn't have it in
night.
front of me, had to guess.
A Night of the
Oh,
Seven.
night.
you
There we
didn't
go.
get it. You
No,
didn't
didn't
get
get
it. Dang it.
But Pamela, what did you think overall of this new episode Game of Thrones?
Oh god, it felt like an uneventful episode, but at the same time, I felt like they gave us so much.
Yeah.
But I felt like it felt too good. So I feel like the next episode is just going to be totally horrendously, like, emotionally gripping, and just I feel like I'm gonna cry 10 times next
Mm-hmm.
week. Like, just actually a consistent cry. You know, like
Yeah.
no breaks, just crying.
All the happy tears for this episode. Next week is the real. So let's get into that a little bit. We saved. Who do we think, Pamela? Who do you think is going to die next episode?
I feel like because of the buildup, I feel like, oh man, I feel like at one point I was like, everybody's dying. Like, that's just what's gonna happen.
Yes.
But right now I feel like the people who got the most out of the last episode are gonna get the worst. Like, I feel like Grey Worm's gonna die because of that, and maybe Missandei is gonna die because of the feverish kissing.
Let's not kill off both our colored characters, please.
I
Please,
would-
please, not both of them. There's only two.
I know, well, yeah, but I mean, like, just based on like how they didn't get a moment in the, like, in the trope in most movies where someone's gonna die or someone's gonna disappear. Like, when this is all over, I'm gonna take you away, and then
Yeah, yeah.
that's not how that's gonna happen.
Yeah.
Sorry. But I think, aside from people dying, and I know this is like kind of like steering it off in a really weird way, but my favorite moment, and this is the most obscure and subtle moment that people, I don't think anywhere is talking about, is the moment when Jaime's asking, Bran to, like, kneel, and she's still sitting. In the background, you see Tormund, like, leaning, just constantly leaning more and more, and the entire time I was laughing my butt off, just like, oh my god, that's perfect. Like, the subtle humor in there, and, like, to kind of, like, counterbalance the raw emotional energy of her, like, this is what I want, but I need to be strong and like
Yeah.
all this stuff.
I don't really want to be a knight. It's okay.
Yeah,
I
yeah,
don't
no,
really
fine.
want-
Don't worry about it. Don't worry about it. But yeah, I think Tormund in the background of that scene was. I wanted to talk about it. I'm so sorry.
No,
No,
it's
you
good.
definitely
Thank you.
should. I'm glad that you brought it up because after she does stand up, he's the one given a standing ovation.
Yeah.
He's like,
amped.
it's
He's
so funny.
He's her biggest fan.
I don't know if it was like this in the books, but I read somewhere, and I don't know how true it is, but the fact that the actor who plays Tormund actually kind of made that happen because in the scene where they're riding up together, he's like staring at her and giving her eyebrows. That led into the the directors and the producers to want to build out that like not relationship but the crush
Yeah.
because everybody loved it so much.
Yeah, I think it's a similar thing with we got an asset of Lyanna Mormont, the little girl that like I think it was one of those they wanted to show in an earlier season that like this is how bad things have gotten, kids are ruling.
Yeah.
But that actress was so
She's
perfect.
so good.
Yeah.
And so it's like we just got to put her on everything. To the point where when she was given, like, she was telling Jorah, like, whatever, I know I'm the future of the household. You back off, cousin. I was like, just let her have the Iron Throne. I just want her to.
If
Please
you
just
say-
let
if
her.
you give her enough friends and helpful hands, I
Yeah.
think you'll be okay.
But
O'Neill.
also, remember they're related?
Yeah.
Your cousin? Are you kidding me? Great grandpa, probably. That's closer. Yeah, that the cousin's a stretch. Kayla Marie 033 on Discord asked us, did anything you see in episode 2 confirm or change your predictions of who was going to make it through the battle? Also, how much did you cry watching Brienne get knighted? Wanted to ask you specifically.
Oh my god, yeah, I did cry because it was like you've seen her like almost get raped, you've seen her like try to fight for her word and the ability just to be able to defend people and like she's being, brought down because she's a woman and that like she's a powerful warrior and so to feel like the support she's getting from people that she respects and to be knighted and that's like an accolade in itself. So
Yeah.
I feel like it was very gratifying to watch her be knighted, but at the same time, to answer your question, I feel like that's gonna get her. I don't want to say it, but
If she dies next episode, my wife's going to rage quit the show.
Yeah.
She's her favorite character by far. I'm not sure about Brienne going. I do think after this, Bran's like, I'm the memory, and if I go, Bran's done. Next,
Yeah.
I think that's going to be the like, things are really bad because Bran's super donezo.
So do you think Bran is somehow going to like merge with the Night King in
that
that
would be
process?
bad. That would be bad.
I feel like I like the idea of like when Tyrion asked to sit down and talk with Bran about what's happening. We don't see any of it.
Yeah.
And Tyrion's always been a storyteller through and through for everything. He's always the drinking buddy. He's the only one sharing stories. So
Yeah.
he's getting other people to tell him stories. The idea of maybe him taking the place of someone who has stories, not the 3-eye rape, not
Yeah.
going full like
Right.
meditative,
He
whatever.
won't experience the
No,
stories,
but
but he
like,
could at least carry them.
a representation of what that means for Westeros. He's been around so much, and so do all of these characters. They represent. It's not just going through one person who can experience something that's supernatural. All of these characters have been through so much together that I think we might lose Bran, but we don't lose what Westeros means within all of with this like cast of characters. Bran, though, in the trailer we saw, is like right front and center of
Yeah.
like the battle. So I'm like,
Yeah, I
but
think-
so was John,
Yeah.
like at the
Yeah.
Battle of the Bastards. Like
Yeah.
he was right there.
I do feel like before the show goes, there's no way Jorah makes it out of the show alive.
gotta go be Batman.
So I don't
Out
know
of
if it's
the whole show or next season?
out of the whole next episode,
Or, yeah, next
maybe
episode.
before the show ends, maybe next episode. I feel like what's his face, eye patch dude has to go.
Beric
soon.
Dondarrion.
Beric Dondarrion, like it's at the point now. It's like I know you serve a purpose, but like.
Well,
character-wise, what purpose? I know, like, I've been kept around because
So,
whatever.
Thoros
But every
of
time he shows
Myr-
up, it's like, how are you still around, guy?
Thoros of Myr isn't here anymore. Melisandre's not here anymore. Really, kind of the only representative of the Lord of Light we have right now is Beric Dondarrion
Yeah.
in this battle.
Whoa, hold on. I gotta interject here.
Get him.
Uh-huh.
Because the actress who plays Melisandre said that she is coming back.
She did.
So,
Yeah.
and she did say, "I am meant to die in Westeros."
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
I feel like next episode, some people gonna be dying, but some people gonna be resurrected.
Yeah.
So you think she'll
Interesting.
come back in like mid battle?
Well-
next episode.
flying in on a.
Yeah.
That's what I
plane.
wonder if maybe
Like-
she comes in after the Battle of Winterfell.
Well,
Yeah.
because like that's what she did with Jon Snow. Like she wasn't like, and then suddenly she was like, "Boom! Oh, I tried. Okay, bye." And you know, like.
Mhm.
So I feel like that would be like the two of them coming together to help or something. But also too, what other reason do you need to see him like Beric Dondarrion wielding a flaming sword? It just looks so cool every time.
I feel like next episode we're gonna lose Bran, we're gonna lose Theon, we're gonna lose Jorah, we're gonna lose Beric.
I think we're gonna lose Davos too, and that's gonna really
that's
hurt.
gonna
It's
hurt.
I
like
think we're
losing
going to
your
lose
dad.
Davos. I
Yeah.
think there's also a high probability we could lose Arya. I think there's a high probability we could lose Tyrion. As we kind of mentioned in the main episodes, there was a lot of like, you'll be safe in the crypts.
Oh yeah.
So, and Tyrion's going down into the crypts. Also, Gilly and
Yeah.
little Sam are going down into the crypts, which when they showed that last shot of him sleeping peacefully, as a parent of a little boy, I was like, no, don't get little Sam.
Well, because-
like, I'm like freaking out. And then they talk that little girl who's like, I want to fight. And they're like, no, you should go down in the crypts and defend everybody. Like, there was so much like, you'll be safe in the crypts.
Yeah.
And we know that the White Walkers turn dead people into their army.
So there's been
We don't know if they can resurrect the
long
long
dead.
dead because of maybe decomposition, or also like people saying Ned Stark could come back. Ned was beheaded. We don't know if they can resurrect beheaded individuals.
Yeah.
There's a lot of questions
Yeah.
there, but I do think that there's a possibility that we could see that happen, and that would be a lot of loss.
Oh my god.
Yeah,
That would be a lot of heartbreaking loss.
Because the fan theory that's like, oh, they're gonna bring Ned back as White, and I was like, bullshit. And then with all the crypt stuff, I'm like, probably they're probably gonna bring all those people back.
But I feel like one of my favorite interactions that I played out in my head for the next episode was that little girl, like, actually, like, at one point in the episode defending somebody.
with
Yeah.
Tyrion, like side by side with
Yeah.
Tyrion.
Well, and like what I see when you're talking about Davos potentially dying, that he would die, but he would die to protect that girl because it
100%.
reminds him of Shireen.
Yeah.
You know, like
She's got to burn and everything.
Yeah,
or the
there
Grayskull
has
was.
to be some poetic ending for Davos to, like, he finally is able to step forward, because so many times he was like, no, don't do that, no, don't stand up for Shireen, no, and then, you know, like that build up, you know.
Yeah, so Trisha, you've read the books, and I know the Clegane Bowl, the two Clegane, that's been a big fan theory forever. Is the Hound immune because of that theory? And
So
also, he even had a moment where he looked them out in the face, like, you and I, we gotta go.
And then it was like,
Right.
confirmed!
So that's what everyone's like, well, the Hound has to survive because we have to have Clegane Bowl. If there's anything the series has taught me is we don't have to anything.
Yeah.
The series does what it wants, okay? Like, Arya has her list. That doesn't mean she has to live to finish her list. Like,
Yeah.
I don't know. I think there is a possibility the Hound could go. I feel like no one is safe moving into next episode, with the exception of I don't think that they're going to take both Jon and Daenerys.
Yeah.
I think
Agreed.
we could see one of them go, and it would still work for the story. I don't think we could see both of them go. But man, wouldn't that be a surprise if they just Red Weddinged everybody at Winterfell, and then we were left watching the Night King and some White Walker versions of our
Yeah.
favorite people battling Cersei and the Golden Company.
I feel like the with like another scenario, like everybody's playing scenarios in their heads. But the irony of everybody dying and becoming the Night King's army, and then, you know, like Cersei doesn't come help, so she eventually gets killed by, you know, her undead brother,
Yeah.
whichever
Right.
one it might be.
Yeah.
Right.
And like the irony of, like, I did all this stuff for family and so that we could be on the throne, and like, oh, you got killed by your undead brother because you didn't help him.
Yeah.
Bron's on his way.
Yeah, I just realized
Bron's
that.
on his
Do we
way to
think-
kill the brothers.
Do
He's-
you
yeah.
think it's going to be one of those like, Jamie and or Tyrion is seconds from dying, and then Bronn comes in like Sparta
Or
kicks the White Walker out of the way?
Yeah.
Jamie, like, just barely survives
Yeah.
and then gets an arrow through the back of the head from Bronn.
No, I think the reason that Cersei sent Bronn is because every time she's put out an order to kill any of her brothers, or either of her brothers, she never goes through with it. So she was like, you go kill them because I want people to know that I sent you out to kill them. But Bronn won't do it because he trusts and cares for both of them, despite the fact that he's been like, I do it for money. I'll kill anybody for money. But he won't do it for them.
Maybe. I thought that she questions Bronn's loyalty. So she was like, either he's going to go north and die with everybody else in this battle, or he'll actually take out my brothers, which means he's super loyal because I know he likes
Yeah,
them.
either way, he's not. He's out of my hair, kind of.
Right.
I
Yeah.
could see, by the way, just coming back to people who are going to die, Gendry, he has no purpose. He serves no purpose for anything that's
He's the
happening
He
right now.
existed for
Dragon.
sex.
Yeah.
Sex and making weapons,
Which-
but we saw a full
Right.
forge.
Oh!
Oh
Save the Thrones book!
no! No, I'm sorry.
That's okay.
It's the memory. It's the memory.
No, we
Once-
lost the memory.
So Sam is really the Night King, erasing all the
I'll be
memories.
back. There you go. Sorry.
This is what y'all pay for on Patreon.
Yeah, right? You get the inside view. That's all right.
Hey, but you know what? Wet books always look super aged and cool.
They do.
They
That's
do
actually
look
And
true.
they never
aged
stick
and
together
cool.
once
It's
you
way more
separate them.
authentic, and it only got the ends.
Just the tip.
Awesome.
Yeah, sorry.
Well, the electronics. are
We'll
okay.
buy her new notebook.
You got it. Anyone you want.
It does. It makes it look more authentic now.
Here's
Look,
this
with
for
its
you.
like wiggled pages. It's okay, man.
Hey, the Night King works in mysterious
He
ways.
does.
True.
Where's that T-shirt?
I'm just gonna put this right here to dry off.
In front of the fan.
Yeah.
Right there to dry off. My Westeros map dress is very absorbent.
I feel like you have a themed dress for everything.
You know, I try. I really do.
So what point were you making?
Pick it back up.
I don't remember.
What I was saying?
I thought you were in the middle of saying something.
Yeah, because you're like, wow.
Uh,
You were in the middle of
No
something.
more drinks at the table.
Between, it was my, yep, good. Yeah, Genji's gonna die. This is
Oh,
what I was
yeah,
gonna
yeah,
say.
yeah, yeah,
Hound
yeah.
might die. Eye patch pirate guy's probably gonna die. Jamie dying would be pretty cool. I might die from embarrassment. That might happen between now and next
He's-
week.
He's as red as I am underneath
Yeah.
my makeup.
yeah. So Gendry, I think, but Gendry's the last Baratheon.
Yeah.
Also, do you think they're gonna pull the thing that like Arya's gonna be pregnant now? Then that's gonna be.
I
how
think
something goes in?
Daenerys is pregnant.
Yeah.
Yeah,
I feel that's a safe bet. I
It
feel like
needs
that's
a
a safe bet.
Targaryen. She needs a Targaryen to make her pregnant. You know,
Yeah.
just lions.
that's what Targaryens do.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And
But
this is,
not only do lions do that, Targaryens do that too.
it's also a way to get around some of the incest stuff because neither of them knew.
Yeah.
So it's less bad that they had an incest baby.
Yeah, and then the baby will be born a boy, and it will be the prince who is promised.
I did have a moment of like maybe Jon will prove that he's a Targaryen because the fire won't burn. It's like no, he's already been burned because he burned his hand when he
I've
threw
actually
the.
brought this up before because although John was burned, that was before he died.
Uh-huh.
You know,
Yeah.
like so. I feel like that would be if they did do that, that would be a justification. Like
It's
you know,
a-
he died. He's like Neo. He's the one. He had to die first in order to be a burn and ride dragons.
And that makes the incest stuff okay too because now he's a corpse anyway. So she's already having sex with a moving corpse. So you know, hey, you know, like
my
hey,
God.
Necrophilia, we got
it's
it.
fine.
Boy.
It's fine.
We got a
It's fine.
question here from Kayla Marie, and it's up there too. Are there any character interactions or reunions left that you'd like to see?
Good question.
Well,
I would love to see Jamie be the one to take Cersei out. I would like to see that before the end of the series. That'd be cool.
Would you like to see the Clegane Bowl happen? The
Sure.
two
I don't know if it means anything because it's like fighting. I mean, it's like a marionette now. Like
Yeah.
it's not like it's scary. It's like a monster, but like.
Yeah.
It's 100% closure for the Hound, though.
But
Yeah.
he's grown so much. Like if he
has.
did die in the next episode, I would be okay with where he's like come so far.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I like his redemption arc is one of my favorite aspects of this show. I think that's his arc has been very interesting.
I feel like one of the few people though that doesn't really care for Clegane Bowl. Like I'm like, okay, cool.
Yeah.
You know, like all right, if it comes up, I'll enjoy it. But I feel like this whole series is led up to Cersei being killed by one of her little brothers,
Yeah.
and I feel like it would be much more satisfying if it was Jamie. You know,
Yeah.
like 'cause she was closest to him, and she doesn't think it's gonna happen, and like Cersei this whole time has thought it was gonna be Tyrion, and that's why she's so angry towards him. Is like
Yeah.
he's gonna kill me. I'm gonna put him at arm's length. I'm never gonna, you know, like I feel like Jamie's gonna do it.
I also feel like the theory I came in going into this season was that we might take care of the Night's King early, and the real threat was going to be Cersei because
You
the
did
show,
call that.
yeah, because the
Yeah.
show has been more interested in people than like existential threats. But now with the way everything's setting up, I'm getting like Avatar: The Last Airbender vibes, where it's like, cool, we got to take care of the firebenders during the eclipse, and then everything goes
Yeah.
to pants, and so then they have to do it at the worst possible moment because it makes the threat scarier. So it wouldn't surprise me if the Night King just rolls right over Winterfell, obliterates basically everything. We're left with like 2 or 3 characters, and then they're like, shit, we got to get him before he gets to King's Landing and gets all those people.
Yeah.
So while the Golden Company's trying to hold off the Night's King and all that stuff, we've got like 5 remaining characters like, hey, we're here too.
That
I
could
feel
definitely
like,
happen.
I feel like with Jamie leaving, Cersei will now be at the point where she's like, "Oh crap, this is real." You know, like she's gonna do what Tywin did at every single war and step in at the last minute. You know, like because Winterfell's prepared for the Night King, and there's no Dragonstone in King's Landing. There is, I think there's still like that green fire, wildfire. I think there's still some of that, but I don't think she really understands how to like arm it or whatever. So I think like her father, she's gonna, especially because they paid no attention to her this last episode. And when you don't see something, you can expect something the next
That's
episode.
true.
So I feel like that would, in a way, be a reunion where it would be like, you can't say I didn't do anything for you, and then the rest of the series is going to be that whole like, who's on this road?
Is there more wildfire buried under the city? Like, could they get all
Oh,
the
tons.
They-
Yeah, there's
so-
tons of wildfire left,
We
and
could get all the White Walkers in there and then just set it
that
off.
would be the
Bring it
battle.
down there.
If the White
Looney
Walkers
Tunes
get
style.
down to King's Landing, it would be a wildfire battle for
Yeah.
sure.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Man, that'd be so cool. Well,
It would be cool.
cocktails
We
with
might
the
see it.
dragon fire. That'd be really cool. Landsander, I did like this question. A little long, so here we go. Do you think that this episode, along with next week's, will break the Geneva Conventions for torture after how hard it breaks our hearts for whatever happens next week? We were set up by so many nice character moments that made us smile or cry. I can feel the showrunners hoisting us over before they slam us down into the worst pit of despair yet. Yeah, you're going to feel awful. I think we're going to lose one of the... I honestly feel like you're going to lose a John or a Danny, and I don't know how to feel about that because there's no reason not to wait. There's no reason to wait anymore. You're near the end. You want to see like how they would figure it out, maybe like as adults or with a cool like one-on-one battle or dragons fighting in the sky. That would all be cool. But like the way the show works, it's always like last-minute surprises when it comes to deaths, and I think it's going to be something along those lines.
Yeah.
I think it's going to be an Arya or a Tyrion.
Mm-hmm.
I think one of those is going to go.
I do think if it's Tyrion, he's going to get another moment of his cleverness saving the day because they made a big
agree.
deal about like, hey, you've been kind of dropping the ball the past couple seasons, and a good moment for. And also his sit down with Bran felt important.
His sit down with
Yeah.
Bran felt important, and the scene between Daenerys and Jorah I thought was more important for Tyrion than it was for them.
Yes, agreed.
Yeah.
Because he was saying like, yes, I'm vouching for this other person to take my spot, even though I didn't like him because he's so wise, which I think is setting us up for should something happen to Tyrion, then Daenerys will make Jorah her new hand, and that was like the consensual, like it'll be okay if this happens.
I feel
moment.
like the build up is bringing this all together for like Tyrion's gonna survive, Jorah's gonna die, but Daenerys isn't gonna survive because she's had moments of like madness, you know, like hasn't been brought up to like have the humility that Jon has, and every crown that Jon has worn has been one that he wears, you know, sort of like
Reluctantly.
begrudgingly almost. And I feel like he would become the king of, you know, the Seven Kingdoms by, you know, like, well, crap, you know, like, and then Tyrion's going to be his hand, you know, like, 'cause
Maybe.
he's got and then, you know, Bran's going to die, but also, too, I feel like it's not necessarily going to break the Geneva Convention, to bring back to your question. I feel like no show is going to take that, like Lost and The Walking Dead. You know, like those shows purposefully manipulated us because there was no pre-existing writing that had structure and build-up. That was just like, what can we do to get them like shock value? This isn't shock value. This is like character structure and like build-up and like really good storylining that's not too, you know, like sweet. You know, like but most movies, I should say, you see nowadays are very like, happy ending. I feel good about that. But this
Right.
one is like, wow, that they fought really hard. They endured so much stuff, which is kind of like real life. So you know, you deal with stuff, and then sometimes you have an ending that is bittersweet.
From Zral 13, this because we've been talking about the crypt and the crypt being like a false, you know, a little red herring a bit. Did the Lannisters, Freys / Boltons give the Starks their dead from the Red Wedding back, namely Robb, Catelyn, Janine, and the unborn Stark baby? I don't think they did. Pretty sure they got tossed in a ditch or something. They're asking about that, but if they're there, that would just be a nice little.
If
little bit
they
more
did, but
depression
again,
porn.
Robb was also beheaded, just
Yeah.
like
Yeah.
Ned. And can you resurrect a beheaded corpse?
Catelyn just had the.
Catelyn just had her throat
Lady
slit.
Stoneheart.
Yeah, and
This might be a good way to do like sort of. Here she is.
Sort of Stoneheart.
Yeah.
Yeah, we might get a sort of Stoneheart. I don't want to explain what that is for people who want to read the books and do not want that spoiled for them. But there's like a thing with Catelyn Stark that's pretty cool that happens in the books that we might see in season 8.
I also wonder, next week's the big Winterfell battle, and we'll have 3 more episodes after that.
Yeah.
It's crazy.
Yeah.
Well, that's crazy.
What do we think's going to happen with those? And they're all crazy long. I'll bet you the last one is, because the traditional structure of this show has been major stuff happens second to last episode. The last episode's kind of a denouement. So I would be willing to guess the last episode is like, hey, where are they now?
Yeah.
Whoever's left, hey, where are
10
they
years
now?
later,
Yeah.
he went to college and now he's a professor.
Yeah. So the
Tyrion opened
other
a restaurant.
I hope they don't Harry Potter us.
All
I
their
wanna
kids
see
go
that.
to school.
Yeah.
Yeah.
They ride baby dragons away. Yeah. And then it becomes How to Train Your Dragon. Everything
Oh.
connects.
Don't you dare diss on How to Train Your
Mm.
Dragon. That's my jam.
I love it. It's great. I cried in the last movie.
Yeah.
So what do we think the final episodes will be after this?
I feel like I don't want to start building up anything because I'll become too invested in my theories and then I'll be disappointed. I want to assess what's going to happen the next episode with the information I received on the last episode and then cut it there.
Yeah.
Like sort of theorize towards the end, but at the same time, if I do that to myself, I won't enjoy the episodes coming up because I'll just be disappointed it wasn't what I expected.
Right, there's too many unknowns at
Yeah.
this point between now and the last episode to theorize.
Yeah.
I mean, all our favorite characters could get murdered next episode.
Yeah.
I'm feeling the little flash forward with the final episode kind of feel. I'm getting that feeling, seeing where what's headed, what's next. Maybe just because most companies do this, they give you a taste of what the spinoff's going to look like. Stranger Things did that, whiffed it hard.
Yeah.
But I could see let's look back. Bran, come on, do a best of really quick of in the past, and you see flashes of the other show for a second.
Yeah.
I could see something happening like that, but it would be better than the way I'm describing it because
Yeah.
the show does a better job of telling
No, it's
stories
just
than
actually
I do.
the
It's just
last
this.
episode is it's just Sam.
Yeah. The one thing I do need is I would like to see Ned show up, not necessarily as a White Walker, but
Force Ghost?
maybe right before Bran goes, he flashes back to a time that he got to spend with his dad, because Ned meant so much to me in this show, and he's meant so much to the show that I'd like to see Sean Bean come back
You
just
guys,
for a little.
you guys ever seen About Time?
Yeah.
You guys ever seen it? I was thinking of that last scene.
Any excuse to talk about time.
Your life is worse because of it. You haven't watched that perfect
So
movie.
many people, that movie is off their radar, and
Yeah.
it was so good.
That
Yeah.
scene, oh my God, Bill Nye. Why isn't he in this show?
Bill Nye could be
yeah.
in this show.
He'd be great. He's the Night King. I could see it. That'd be amazing. That'd be a good reveal. No, I actually like that idea. But
Yeah.
the flashing
Yeah.
back just for a moment of Bran being a normal human being, for just a
Yeah.
human instead of a machine.
Yeah.
It would be nice to see that. And yeah, for when it comes to the end, I don't want a happy ending for Cersei. I'll throw
Yeah.
that out there.
Oh,
Yeah.
yeah. I mean, we got the satisfying death of Joffrey because and Ramsay, so I feel like we'll get a satisfying death. And then a poetic ending. I know I've said that a lot, but I
Yeah.
need that poetry. Give me
Yeah.
that GOT poetry.
And I'm also feeling one more dragon's gonna go in the blender. Just one more.
Or
Right?
maybe they'll get the one back. You know?
Ooh.
Then Melisandre, Well,
Yeah.
I mean, Benjen was saved from, complete
Kind of.
undeadness. Well, I mean, he was
Yeah.
still undead, but he was still, fighting for the living. And as he
Right.
said, and he died for the living at the same time. So I feel like if anybody does become undead, children of the forest, like the Dragonstone thing, I feel like there was a particular reason that Benjen said, this is how I managed to stay alive.
All right, I like that.
Like they mentioned it. If you go back and you watch all the stuff about Jon Snow being Aegon Targaryen, you're like, oh my God, they're really hinting at it. We just didn't know.
No.
I feel like that would be a really cool twist is if people did become undead, but they have so much dragon glass. So, they would I'll save you,
That'd be cool, because I thought the Benjen stuff was kind of whiffed a little bit. There's so much build
I
up to
did
be
too.
oh,
Yeah.
bye-bye.
Well,
and he comes in with his flail
Yeah.
again.
because Cold Hands is a big deal in the books, and I
Yeah.
felt it felt like a little bit of a series whiff because they were we got to get him back in just because he's a big deal in the books, but
Yeah. Yeah,
it
and
wasn't
also, even
followed
if you
through.
just watch the show, it's his being missing is a huge part of the first couple seasons.
Yeah.
And it felt to me, it felt like there was a part where they had to stall because they were waiting for the books, and then they realized, oh, the book, they're never going to be done. So then now it's kind of they have to get through stuff because they spent so much time waiting for the book to come out.
I always thought that
Maybe.
Benjen was just filler. What are we gonna do now? Oh, Benjen came.
Well, and when he reappeared appears in the books, he's Cold Hands.
Yeah.
They don't call him Benjen. It takes a while to figure out that Cold Hands is Benjen.
Yeah.
Which they couldn't do in the series because it's the same actor and everyone
No.
would know right away and all sorts of other problems.
No.
But yeah, like Cold Hands is like a cool character, but yeah, he was kind of weird in the series.
Doesn't he ride a stag or something?
Oh yeah,
So
he's
cool.
super cool.
I'm way into that. I'm way
And
into
he could
that.
maybe pop up in this battle because he
Yeah.
can get past the wall now, right?
Yeah.
So that'd be
'Cause,
cool.
Again, they didn't. It was kind of like Stannis Baratheon, except everybody's like he's dead,
Yeah.
but they don't actually say Benjen is dead.
Yeah,
you
he
just
just-
see like, ugh, but
Yeah.
there could be a chance that he
Yeah.
like comes barreling through. after-
Ambiguous deaths are a big deal in Game of Thrones.
Yeah.
Very true. But Pamela, thank you so much for joining us.
Hiya.
I'm so excited for the rest of the season, but where can people find you?
I'm all across the board on social media at Pamela Horton 13, and you can see my streams at fb.gg/Pamela Horton 13.
Boom. Bayonetta,
Bayonetta, Bayonetta, Bayonetta.
I
We'll do
like
some
that.
chaos magic. We'll make it happen.
Yeah.
Hyper
But-
sigils and the whole shebang.
There you go.
Yeah.
That girl Trish, everywhere that matters, but
Yep.
not on Twitch. You gotta do Trisha Hirschberg.
Yeah,
for that
Twitch
one.
and YouTube is Trisha Hirschberger.
Boom.
At Teacher Talks Trash.
At Sam Basher might be social. Thank you to the patrons, and thank you to Caitlin Conway for being a producer on the show. We want to get you on the show. It's gonna be fun. It'll be a blast. Thank you for everybody. We love you. Bye bye.
Okay, bye. Oh wait, stay
Frosty.
Stay frosty.
Stay silly, my dude. Bye.